right, here we go. Hold on. Hello, everybody. We are
There's
live.
everywhere.
Hope everybody's doing well. I'm. This is not Coven MTG. This is Igniting the Spark: The Story of Magic the Gathering. This is our closing day live stream, and we are here with all three of the
Our
producers.
second to last closing
Second to last closing day.
Right. Or
And
something.
we're here with all three producers and Donato Giancola, magic artist, to start us off, to kick this off. So
We have exactly 30 hours to go, it says on our Kickstarter.
so we're gonna be streaming live for 30 hours. No, we're not.
30-hour stream
Non-stop.
with Donato for 30 hours.
30 hours.
I hope you brought supplies.
So Donato, how is everything going? We know you have a big art exhibition coming up. I want to start there because, frankly, any opportunity to see walls and walls of your art, I think, is pretty awesome. So, what's up with that? What happened? Like, how'd that come together?
Oh, well, that's got a long story, but it's with the Huntsville Museum of Art down in Alabama, Huntsville, Alabama, which is kind of the home of Americans' rocket science, which is why it's kind of sciencey there and science fiction oriented. And the director of the museum, Christopher Madcore, used to be a director of another museum up in Vermont. And you're like, what does that have to do with me? Well, I grew up in Vermont, and my family, my aunts still live there. And Christopher somehow saw one of my paintings that one of my aunts, my Aunt Marie, had in her home, and was fascinated by that and the connection for a living artist, illustrator in Vermont. So I had an exhibit. Oh boy, it's been 15 years ago now up in Vermont.
Okay.
And so Christopher, when he's now that he's a director down there, thought of me to pull me in for a science fiction show, basically a fantasy science fiction show down at the Huntsville Museum.
So it's going to be a mix of your work. It's not exclusively science fiction stuff. It's going to be some science fiction, some fantasy, mix and match, or
no? It's a retrospective of my work, and it's spanning not only just a retrospective, but we're doing. I pitched the whole idea of the like a commercial illustrator side. So the visual development, the historical development of where I came from. So it'll have some of my very first drawings with like Dungeons and Dragons that I had done as a teenager.
Right.
Some drawings when I was 7 years old from my first grade. And so it's all that. None of my recent stuff, because that's all garbage. You just want to see that.
I just want to see the stuff you did in a notebook when you were 12.
People love that stuff. That's why I wanted to pitch that.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, for so Eye of the Beholder, our first documentary, you were gracious enough to participate in that one as well.
Right.
And we got to see, my favorite part of that was, editing-wise, was putting the extras with you and your maps that you drew as a kid, your dungeon maps.
Thanks.
Yeah, that was great. So I like this origin story of Donato exhibition, basically, is what.
Yeah, and it's also processed. So I've got some preliminary drawings, photographic references. So things that most people don't see in a museum.
Right.
They think artists are geniuses. They really, I mean, seriously, like they think, just shit just comes out of your head. Sorry, it's all right.
No, it's okay.
You sprang from the womb.
Hits the canvas and it's fully formed.
Yeah.
You're like,
right.
No, that's not how it works.
Well, what's cool about that is it shows people who are fans of your work, who might be, budding artists themselves, that even Donato had to, even Donato, master of the hand, once had to draw little boxes for fists and just sort of hope nobody noticed.
I think
do lots of boxes.
Yeah, like some of those early drawings. Unfortunately, they didn't have a whole lot of room, so I wanted to show like a lot of the early stuff just to see how clunky and bad my anatomy was, so that like you said, young artists can understand. Oh, it's like learning. It's something you can learn, right? Yeah.
I if we could, I kind of want to skip from the origin story of Donato to right now Donato in one way,
Okay.
because I'm really curious about it. So, Seth, I need you to be ready to bring up a card.
Oh God, what am I bringing up?
You are bringing up King Darien from Dominaria.
Oh, all right.
And I want to talk about this card. I don't care if you put me on the split screen. It could be you and Brian if it's easier. Seth,
I think it's just me and Donato, so hold tight.
Oh, okay, great.
Okay.
You'll just hear my voice.
All right, there we go.
So yeah, we get to see the card this way. So the way you posted this on Facebook was you said it was Crom from oh God. Conan the Barbarian, right.
Yeah,
Tell us about King Darien and Crom.
Well, I think, hold on, before you do that, my comment was, I think it's a combination of Conan and Donato, but hey.
Yeah, you actually got it, Seth. Yeah. that was my reference. 4 or 5 years ago, I let my beard just go crazy. My family hated it. But I did take a bunch of photos of me, like as a dwarf, as a warrior, just, I didn't know what I was going to do with it. And then this card came along, and it's like, oh, this is perfect. So yes, that is indeed me as King Darien, or the King Darien, geez, what number was that?
18?
The 48th?
48th? I can't do Roman numerals. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
So your beard was that out of control? Like it was like you looked like you had been in the forest for like 6 months?
Yeah. Only it's whiter. So I actually, King Darien's younger than the way I would have looked if I painted it. Would have had a lot of gray, a lot more gray coming in there.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had to know. I had to know the story behind King Darien. So, and since we won't have that in the documentary, it was just a bonus now. So.
All right. Well, here, let's just keep going down this road. Brian said it. Master of the Hand.
Oh yeah. There's the those hand. Any excuse I can get.
Why do you like drawing? Yeah, this is something you've talked about actually a lot, Donato, and you've written about this. Like you've mentioned this when you in social media updates and stuff like that. What is it about hands that you find so fascinating as an artist? What attracts you to painting them?
Oh boy. Well, earlier in my childhood, as a young artist, we all hated hands because it's like, how do you make it look like it's grabbing something?
Right.
It wasn't until I had a class in anatomy with a professor up at Syracuse University, where I had my art school training, Jerome Witkin, and we were tasked with copying old master drawings to help understand how to make lines and interpret visual information, how to mimic basically old master styles of interpretation, so that we could just find a language for ourselves. And one of those process drawings was the copying of a bunch of hands, a bunch of sheets of hands by Andrea Del Sarto and Peter Paul Rubens and like Tintoretto.
Okay.
And it just clicked. Like after doing, like I could draw. It's like overnight I could suddenly draw hands, and it just flowed out of me. And it like, it's many artists feel like the hands are as difficult as like faces and things, but hands just came so easily to me. And to answer your question, like Brian, like why, it's like I feel like they're portraits of people. Okay. Hands are nearly as expressive as faces can be for me. And I mean, actually, if we look at us here on screen, basically also what you see of the human body is mostly faces and hands when you're out there in the world.
Right.
I'm not naked. I have my shirt off. You probably don't want to see my shirt. But we see faces and hands, right? And so as a communication vehicle, I just tapped into that. That's what people see. That's what people respond to. And that's what I'm going to, have fun with commercially.
Or if you grew up in an Italian family and you do this all the time. Trust me on that.
When putting together when approaching magic art, we've sort of talked about, like, you have this history. You've done science fiction. You have stuff that you did as a kid. You have lots of hands. Right. Where's your go-to starting point when you're given a piece of art, like an assignment? I've always sort of been interested in this idea that you're given an art brief, but at the same time, there's still a pretty wide open field for you to decide how you want to approach this thing. How do you start working those ideas to get them to something you then want to start submitting to the art director for approval? How do you winnow down all those options? I don't, decisions?
Brian. I guess I probably, I do have hands in a way that I gravitate to, but if you know my body of work, like, I don't. It's like, it's not only hands. It's
right,
not
of course.
Only faces, right? It's like this big painting I'm working on in the studio right now is a landscape painting. And like, how many landscapes do I have in my portfolio? Like 5, like one hand, like maybe a couple more, but not much.
Maybe you need to do a landscape with just a hand in the middle of the field.
It's a handscape.
A handscape. Oh God, a handscape.
Come on, that was punny.
Oh, that was funny.
Oh, but it's but as a go-to, I like for projects, I don't mean
go-to. I mean, it's this idea that you can go anywhere with an idea. And when do you know something is clicking enough where you feel like this might be the thing? This is what I want to show an art director sending them a number of thumbnails. Are there things that you're looking for, feelings that you're looking for, that let you know this is an idea you want to keep pursuing, or ideally could keep pursuing, right, as opposed to, it looks nice, but I can tell it's not a winner?
Well, you're also like, you're thinking of us as geniuses again, Brian. You don't think I haven't submitted really crappy sketches and like,
okay, fair.
None of these are all junk. It's like, oh well, they'll just pick one and I gotta do one.
Pennies from heaven.
Like, I'm being honest. Like,
yeah.
Sometimes it's like that. Like, you don't have that, like, this is a killer idea. But
right. Sometimes
they do. And that's actually sometimes when I only submit one sketch. And like,
right.
Yeah, this is kind of it. This is like really good. Like there's a one cut of the Prophets from New Capenna that's out. That was just like, I had multiple ideas leading up.
Do you remember the name?
What's that?
Do you remember that?
Cut of the Prophets.
Do.
It's a guy getting literally cut apart to gold and turned into gold, gold bars.
Gore.
Yeah, what was it? I know. I tried not to make it gory, so it's like, it's magical.
Yeah, it's not gory. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just it's harsh.
Harsh.
But
that's a good
that image, just like once I came up with that tiny little thumbnail, it's like, that's it. Like, this has got to. And then I threw myself into that. I think I put 10 hands in that painting. So
I love it.
I could have just done 2, but yeah.
So I had a question for you while we're back on the screen again. Where did I put it? Cabal Surgeon. There's a picture we just took of you still holding the painting. Do you still have this painting?
Yeah, it's going to a LexCon.
So why did you hold on to it for so long? Because this was when, man, this painting was made Torment, right?
You make it sound like I'm not trying to sell it.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Website if you happen to have any extra cash, and PayPal's acceptable.
You got it, man.
Wire transfer is fine too.
We'll have a chat. I'll happily chat with you about that.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm like, I share a house with Seth Polanski, so I'm like, that would look good on the wall.
Well, like, I don't know why I still have it. Like,
I thought there might be some personal connection to it because usually like, it's a Donato piece. Why didn't it? Why isn't hanging on somebody's wall?
Yeah, I don't know. It's got like a nice
got hands.
It's got a disembodied zombie creature. Like, why not?
All right.
Well, it's got a good story behind it too. I mean, that's something that you talked about when we interviewed you.
Yeah.
That it was a little too gory for their tastes.
I know. Like, and I didn't even have any blood. It was like it's a surgeon that's making a Frankenstein monster.
I'll go back.
And so like that's pretty gory, or you know it could be gory, but I didn't show any blood. I just showed her with like an arm that was on the table, and then this guy's arm was up here, and it's like you can see the bone sticking out for the around the elbow, and it's like, but no blood, and it's like it's just a cadaver. But you know, artists are just like, it's just a nude model. She's not naked. It's just a nude model. Like
for the people watching this at home who only can see the card, and we'll show this. You know, you're gonna have to watch our movie to get all the details. But we talked to Donato, and he showed us the original art, which is definitely a little more anatomically visceral, shall we say, than the version that printed. But it's funny, Donato, because you said that they asked you to do this piece, and gore isn't something you normally go to. I don't think of you as like a horror artist as such. Yeah. But when they asked you to, hey, you gave them what they asked for. Not your fault.
It wasn't even gory.
Well, not gory, but it's
I think that's why they
tried image.
Yeah, that's why they gave it to me. And so just so that people know, like they digitally attached the arm to the upper portion. The arm that was lying on the table, they slapped it up here. So.
Well, gotta protect the kids. Gotta protect
them. Donato, we've got a question in the comments. They said, except Flame Wave from Stronghold, where you have the surfer and the skull, do you have any other hidden Easter eggs in your art?
Well,
oh wow,
I know the answer to this, and there's a lot of.
So
are there? You probably know more than I have.
Oh, that's funny.
Like, how often do you put in Easter eggs in your magic art?
So now I got to find the surfer. Where the hell? Oh, I see it now.
Yeah. Actually, very rarely. They actually don't want you to do that anymore.
Really?
Yeah. Like I had fun. Like one of my most recent landscapes actually for magic was Golgari Rot Farm, and for fun I put in a Where's Waldo and Alice in Wonderland. But the Alice from the books. So it's like, oh, that's copyright free stuff. And Where's Waldo? I didn't even show his face. I just showed like a red stripy shirt with blue pants, which, you know, like that could easily pass by the copyright censors.
Sure.
But they digitally swiped it. They wiped it off.
Nope,
like,
gone.
Oh, come on.
All right. So here, I've asked the question. I know I won't get an answer.
Oh God, what?
Oh.
Who's in the
He
crystal
doesn't know
ball?
anything about those. Oh, okay.
Yeah, right.
Who's in the crystal ball?
In Mirari.
Who's in the Mirari?
Everyone wants to know. Well, Mirari actually was easy because there wasn't really. That was just a bait and switch idea. Is that it's there's if you look in closely in Mirari, you'll see there's a small figure walking away towards a doorway.
Yep.
Right.
In the doorway, there's a little tiny shadow.
Yep.
So basically, someone's going to answer the door, and someone else is coming to steal the Mirari.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I don't have any particular people in mind.
Okay.
Just a narrative. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't notice the person in the doorway, the open doorway, until you said that.
Yeah, they're
crazy.
There.
Yeah, wow.
Hey, Mandy.
We're saying hi to people in the comments.
But I think, like going back, Brian, to your your comment, like how do I know, or how do I get ideas? You know, or I mean, my go-to feeling is building narrative, like that.
Okay.
Like Mirari was an artifact. It was an artifact card, and I just don't want to do an artifact. Even the first card I did for Magic was Amber Prison artifact card.
Yep.
And I put that hand in there because I just want to tell stories. I just feel like that's why I'm making art.
So
stories.
I know that our movie's about Magic the Gathering and whatnot, but I've got you on the call here, and I want to know how it felt to actually be the person to paint Mordenkainen.
Oh,
this is this thing's amazing.
Yeah, that was
classic.
It appears throughout my entire life of Dungeons and Dragons, right?
Oh, the character, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So I mean, tell me about it.
Well, it was, like you just nailed it. It just channeled all my childhood love of Dungeons and Dragons. In my studio, let's see, did I share online? I think, did I share the little Wizard's Room miniature set that, here, I'll be right back.
Oh,
He's right back.
He's leaving.
He's
No!
running away to go get something.
Our star-
Well, no. So this is the. I know what he's off to get. This is
nice.
a classic Grenadier miniature set. I think is that.
Oh yeah.
Is that the
Oh,
Grenadier
okay.
set? Oh no.
Yeah, this is the Grenadier
Yeah, the
set.
Grenadier, the Gold Box Wizard's Room
Let's
set.
see. Try to
One of the
rotate that a
best
little.
miniature sets ever made.
Yeah, these things are great.
Wow.
Yeah, and
It's a-
you really
This
built
is a
yours
little
up. That's nice.
diorama.
Yeah, that's
It's a,
great.
it's a book. It's a part of my sister bookends for
That
my.
is so cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So wizards. So whenever I would play D&D, I played wizards. So Mordekainen was like, the super wizard, and that's so that's why I just totally threw myself into that project.
That's awesome.
I mean-
I saw the painting and it's astounding.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the worst pay like almost ever you could get because they didn't the rate was so bad on the card art and how many weeks, like I put like a whole month almost into that painting.
Yeah, but you
And,
knew.
like,
you knew.
You probably don't, like, it's so bad. It's like, it's criminal. Like what I got paid for that job up front on the, yeah.
But that's on you. That's you deciding I'm going to
Yeah.
put $1 million worth of effort into this thing because it's Mordekainen. I mean,
Right.
I don't want to be the guy who screws that up. Even for my own childhood, I wouldn't want to be the guy who screws. You know what I mean? Like, this is
Right.
him. You know. I guess the only other one would be like him, and you have what was Trampier's was a Miracle who's riding on the horse and he's firing off
Oh yeah.
the bolt
Oh,
of
really?
energy in that one
Oh,
page.
right. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
another
yeah, that
sort of
would be-
classic wizard from
Yeah.
old school D&D. Meanwhile, we have all these Magic fans who are like, what are they talking about?
No, because here's the deal. It's the same company. There have been 2 Magic expansions now or that deal with Dungeons and Dragons. And
Sure.
I'm all here for that. Like I am so
Oh, yeah.
I know you can't talk about it, but Lord of the Rings expanded universe.
Oh, it's easy. Like no traditional artists, only digital artists.
Oh, are
The only
you
digital
kidding
illustrators.
me?
Oh,
Did
so
hear
you
about
didn't...
that one? Yeah.
No.
I knew...
Yeah.
I knew they were doing digital art. I didn't know if it was exclusively doing that. Now, do you
Yeah.
have any insight into that? Like the reasoning? Is it so there's no physical copy
So
to
there's
be
no
sold,
IP
or-
floating around in the physical.
Yeah.
Well, I would guess that like this is speculation.
I don't want to get you in trouble, by
Yeah.
the way. So
No, I'm not going to get in trouble. It's like
Go into
when
it.
they were likely signing the deal with
The estate.
that estate or whatever,
Mhm.
NFTs were so freaking hot.
Yeah.
So I'm like, knowing how greedy some of these, the accountants can be, is like, oh, if we kill out the original art, we could sell the NFTs as the originals and glom on to that original art marketplace that the artists are tapping
Right.
into.
I
Yeah,
suppose.
yeah,
NFTs once again rearing their ugly heads.
I know.
So
Yeah.
no,
I think it's so funny though. They're worthless, aren't they?
Yeah.
It's like, that whole thing is just crap.
You and I at IllixCon, I'm trying to get some other people to do it because I'm sure you have some idea how I, as an IP attorney, feel about AI art and NFTs, and so we should do a panel. I'll talk to you about it, but I'm trying to get like a bunch of interesting people to have a very animated discussion about
No.
AI art at IllixCon.
No, actually, I guess I want to clarify. Like the NFT idea is wonderful. That it does give ownership for digital illustrators, digital artists,
Yep.
to proclaim their material, right? To hold
Right.
authority over their material. But the NFT marketplace, as it is right now,
Yeah.
is a Ponzi scheme. It's like
Oh, yeah.
if there's no control over authentication. There's no control over exchange of NFT structures through different portals that host them.
Oh,
So it's just
I have clients who
crazy.
come to me and find their stuff on OpenSea. It's like, this is mine. Somebody just submitted it as my work.
oh really?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
I would be surprised if there's not some Donato Giancola stuff floating around on OpenSea that somebody just uploaded.
I've got other things like I gotta clean my nails. I gotta do something else. Chasing NFTs.
Yeah. I could go down this rabbit hole with you for a very long time. So
it's actually, but it is right. It's the new way, like AI art, right? It's the new. It's like you'd have to be stupid not to engage with it and understand it, right? As an artist, as an illustrator.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'll stop that conversation there because I'll go down the rabbit hole.
Okay.
That's the thing, though. What we've seen in the illustration world, I mean, and I think it happens faster and faster. This evolution of the tools and the outlets and stuff available to artists. I mean, whether it was the leap from, Paint to Photoshop, and onward, it's just this constantly speeding up thing. So I mean, from us on the outside, it's interesting to see what happens. I'm sure from the perspective of the artists who are involved, it's a lot more than academically interesting. It's sort of important to get this sorted out.
Did you say you could make paintings using Photoshop?
Apparently,
as an oil painter. That's amazing.
Apparently, yeah. It's you can get in there and they use these things called computers, and you dunk the computer in paint and literally hurl it at the canvas.
You mean I can get rid of these things? I don't need these things anymore.
Yeah.
It's cool. See, what as a collector, what I love, you show off those brushes, and part of me is like, what if those brushes painted? You know what I mean? Like, I remember Ralph McQuarrie, after he'd passed away, the people who were handling his estate, and for those who don't know, Ralph McQuarrie was the concept designer behind Star Wars. He's done all sorts of amazing stuff. They were selling prints of his, a print based on an early Star Wars concept with one of his brushes in the frame, in like a shadow box kind of thing. And I just thought that was awesome, like that's one of the brushes. And other people were like, it's a brush. But I don't know, man. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's the stuff that made history, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Someone asked in the chat, Mandy asked about what your favorite card to illustrate was besides Mordenkainen.
You've never gotten this question before.
No. Well, again, I have a lame one. It's like I have actually truthfully many cards that I enjoy painting. So it's more like what I like to paint, and then you can maybe make a list. Narrow, like landscape, portraits. Many times.
If an art director were to come to you and say, "How do I get Donato Giancola excited about this new Magic card?" What do I tell him?
Don't tell me what to paint. I mean, that's kind of easy. It's like we're going back to that King Darien portrait. So like they didn't tell me what he had to look like. They just said, "Give us a king." and they didn't have the armor, so I had to work with the armor. But if you saw, like, by putting those hands and faces, I didn't have to show much of the armor. So
true.
I could tap into my like Conan feel. Like,
was the art direction basically just give us a king in armor?
Yes, that's it. Like Mordenkainen was a little more difficult because he had a costume.
Right.
And but again, that was like Mordenkainen, so I had to like but they didn't say where. I could just like, let's see his what does his lab look like? What's his studio look like? Right? So I just ran deep into that old school role playing, world building kind of feel.
So you've never gotten art direction that said grow a beard for 6 months and then paint that.
Oh yeah, I just did a new one coming up, just finished like 2 weeks ago, where it's like, here are the 3 characters. This is exactly what they look like. Here's the situation. Here's here's the world that they're in, and here's the action. And we got to, can you get all that in there? And we're going to pay you the same as we paid Mordenkainen. So, the thing is, I turn on my Donato. I was like, this is a challenge. This is not what I really enjoy doing all the time, but it's a project. It's me as a professional. So I got to like, okay, how do I solve this? Boom, boom, boom. And then I just start working it out. And yeah, so in a way, even those challenging things can sometimes spit out nice art. Unexpected.
What does solve this mean from an artist perspective?
Oh, well, so yeah, it's, well, as an illustrator, like I am tasked to bring words and collaboration to vision, to resolution. You know, whether that's like an IP structure with like Magic's, you know, their style guides with a pre-existing world and characters, or taking the written word from an author, and or a short story and visualizing, bringing that to life. So I feel like I the honesty to be, you know, fully having the integrity of interpretation that an audience would like to see, is that, you know, so that the story that they're reading or that they're expecting is represented in that visual, in some way in that visual. So that's what I'm talking about solving. So finding, for me, a satisfactory solution that excites me and at the same time delivers to my clients a problem solved. Like I've met their needs, you know, visually for what they were seeking.
Cool.
I know a world that you have enjoyed exploring, both for personal pieces and official pieces, you know, Lord of the Rings and Tolkien's world. Are there any other properties, I guess, or other worlds that you would like to dive into one day if you were given that opportunity?
We should probably paraphrase that again, Brian. Like, are there any other worlds and properties that have a audience of 500 million people worldwide that have been consumed for 40, 50 years, that there's wealthy people with deep pockets that will pay for what you want to do?
Well, but that's fair. But I know you are also a giant Lord of the Rings fan.
Yeah. Yes.
And it seems like a lot of that exploration and a lot of that work, I'd like to think that's satisfying something you as a fan and an artist to indulge in as well. Because if it was just driven by audiences who have deep pockets, you could be painting sports portraits or something, right?
Actually, Todd Lockwood has a good phrase, you know, yachts and golfers.
Right, exactly. So I'm curious if there are other things that you would enjoy painting. Let's pretend whatever you would name has 500 million people and deep pocketed spenders. Are there other like worlds and properties that you would enjoy diving into?
No, I mean, certainly like Ursula K. Le Guin's writings as a whole would be wonderful to celebrate. You know, diving in more into actually this is the reason why I paint robots. Is commercially, I wasn't getting commissions anymore to do robotic styled characters. They were just like phased out. You know, the new Battlestar Galactica, all the Cylons look like us.
Right.
Great budgetary choice.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's exactly what it is.
but actually, yeah, that's the reason why I started making those robots was to fulfill that desire to paint the science fiction that I love. And the stories that I wanted to communicate about science fiction, about the future. Yeah. So
that's the thing. That's the sympathetic robot series that you do, right? Yeah, and they're so narrative. You know what I mean? Like, it's not just here's a cool robot. They're engaging with people and situations in such deeply interesting and empathetic ways that they really draw you in. I really love that work.
Yeah, that's exactly why I felt like those kind of commissions were not coming my way commercially. And and actually that's kind of like why I did the landscapes with the Middle Earth stuff. It's like I'm not getting landscape painting commissions, or like the one on the wall here in the studio. You know, let's see if I could like spin
definitely spin us around.
Like this one I haven't shared in its entirety yet, so you guys are getting like a premiere sneak peek here.
Awesome.
Spin this around, see if you guys can get it in here.
Wow.
We're just traveling through Donato's studio.
Ooh.
There we
That's
are.
sexy as
Oh,
hell. Holy crap!
Oh, that's huge.
Jesus.
Wow.
That's
That's-
crazy,
So
man.
you're doing murals now.
That's
Yeah,
amazing.
But that's the kind of stuff that's like no one's commissioning that. Like no
Right.
no book cover, no magic. They're
Right.
just not. It's
That could be a magic card. That's fine.
yeah, but it's not. It's not.
Was that something you're painting on your own, or were you commissioned?
Is that a commission?
Was that like a private commission or anything
No,
like
that's
that?
just me. That's actually going that exhibition down in Huntsville.
Right.
I wanted to make sure that we had a big canvas for that.
Oh, and you know what?
So-
Here, I
cool,
brought that
yeah.
up. Browser
Yeah.
screen with guest. Here is Donato's Facebook page where check out those links. There's the announcement about the show.
Okay.
So I just wanted folks to see on the stream.
Yeah.
And we'll drop those in the chat a little later too.
But that's like doing astronaut paintings too. Like I've done, like periodically I'll tap into doing astronauts.
So I'm going to
because-
show you something that gave me goosebumps when you mentioned it earlier. I remember being a kid reading the Earthsea stuff, and that
Oh, right.
that cover is indelibly etched in my memory as Ursula K. Do you know who did that? Do you remember? I don't.
Wait, I don't. Yeah, I can't see that.
Oh, that's okay. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
But I don't. Yeah, that's. I mean, it would have been from. Geez, what's that? Early
yeah,
early
like the mid
70s.
'70s.
Yeah.
We can find it out later, but just
Okay.
I can imagine how much fun it would be to play in that world.
Yep. Yeah. And you know what? I'm actually even a bigger fan of her science fiction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Left Hand of Darkness.
Yeah.
The Dispossessed. Yeah.
So
Oh,
here's my TMI for the day. Not TMI really, but one of my I'm a triple major, right? One of my degrees is in religious studies, and the Left Hand of Darkness was taught in religious theory class. Like
Oh,
we actually,
really?
yeah,
That's interesting.
in ethics, meta ethics, and how do you build systems of ethics, because it is world building in these certain ways, and it's
Yeah.
world building around systems of ethics.
Wow.
So
Neat.
Yeah.
Wow. That's great.
That's a cool class.
there's another question about how do you actually make so many pre-release cards?
How do I make so many?
No,
I haven't done any
You
pre-release cards.
apparently somebody drew a whole bunch of your cards in their pre-release. And you got to do 2 versions of all 3? What does that mean? Oh. So you got to do all the cards, all the Cauldra cards. That's the question.
Way
The
back.
series of
you
cards.
mean- Yeah,
Got it.
yeah. Those are the only cards I did for each of those sets. So
Got it.
I was like, yeah.
Ugh.
You know, one thing before we run out of time, I do want to mention, Donato, that you're going to be doing a I don't want to call it a lecture, a session, a group
Oh, chat.
discussion. Yeah,
Right.
for our Kickstarter. For those who might not be aware, where you're going to be talking about you're sort of looking at your history with magic art and talking about references you've used and showing off some of stuff like that. Can you talk a little bit? I don't want to just give it away right now, but like, what sort of things do you think you'll be bringing to that conversation off the top of your head?
Well, first of all, I've got a few scattering bits of artwork that I have not shared at all publicly.
Oh,
So
cool.
that's some early development. Mostly it's like a really rough sketches of some early cards.
Mhm.
So those will be shared, and just also like the way we're talking about the references that were used to create many of those early paintings. At least the ones that still have photographic. Some of the references from.
Sure.
But again, to just reveal, talk a little bit about the processes involved with that, and then also to field questions that many times many people don't get a chance to ask artists like myself. Like even though I answer the phone, I usually hang up immediately because it's a telemarketer. But it gives a chance for people to make inquiries, and unless it's against a non-disclosure agreement or something, I'm more than happy to entertain that, and also to just talk fill people, like, I guess, talk about the history of being an illustrator, being a magic artist for 20, geez, what's it now? 26 years.
Wow.
It's going on. Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's, it's funny. We tend to forget, and I mean, literally the three of us, that a lot, because we go to IX, AluxCon, I email you, we might see people at Magic tournaments and stuff like that. But, there's a lot of people who don't have access, either they're nowhere near some of those conventions, or maybe they're just don't have time to go when they're scheduled and things like that. So I tend to think of magic artists as being really accessible, but it's because we're operating sort of in a world where we are able to go to these things. So it's kind of a cool opportunity, I think, for people to have a chance to talk about the stuff that, the questions they would ask if they got to meet you at a tournament or at a convention or something like that. So
no, and I when I grew up, I didn't meet a professional artist.
Yeah.
Until like I was in college, when they would have literally like bring in visiting artists. Like you read names, but I had never met one or even talked with one until then. Yeah. So that I understand that accessibility sounds like kind of a bit of my responsibility as a successful kind of pop cultural kind of person, is to give back, to those artists, those fans that don't have easy access sometimes to inspiration or motivations, and to make myself, accessible. My website, that's why my website is so sharing with the process of what I do. There's a bunch of videos and things that I've done over the years, just so, again, about education, providing opportunities for connection for people. Yeah.
Well, and I've seen you. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I wanted to explain what the tier was for Donato, just real quick. So that it's the patron wizard tier. So it's an hour and a half presentation with Donato online. Sometime in the next year, we'll figure it out what works for Donato and everybody. And then you get your T-shirt, you get your playmats, your tokens, your Blu-ray, your film credit, your stickers, and your digital extras all wrapped up in one. So that's at the $660 level. That's all. Just wanted to do my little plug. And we had a question in the comments about how come you got to actually
that was
make
the question
so many...
I asked earlier.
Oh, I missed it. Sorry, I thought we didn't ask it.
Yep.
Never mind. Weird. Never mind.
It's all good.
Shutting up.
Did I answer that one?
It was the Cauldron about, you got to do the sword.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
And I guess getting back to that, like in the early part of my career working with Magic, is that I came from the book cover illustration side of kind of technical capabilities and rendering. So when I landed into Magic, I was like a hardcore realist, colorful painter. And so they started using me immediately on packaging material and promotional art for the game, because I had a very polished illustrator's look to it. And that's why I think immediately, like Weatherlight, the second set, was already, they used me on the packaging art for that. Set.
Pull something fun up.
They had seen your Stratego art.
You know what? No, Stratego wasn't even out then.
Oh, there wasn't that.
No, it wasn't even. Yeah, so I did
that now yet.
Yeah, it was just my book cover. Yeah,
I remember. Donato, we were driving up to AluxCon. For those of you, AluxCon's a big convention with an art show and convention. We were driving up there. It was me, you, and Drew. And Donato, we were talking about something, and Donato suddenly goes, I painted some box art for Stratego once, the Milton Bradley board game, if anyone's ever played it. I don't know if anyone even plays Stratego anymore, but I knew the art too, which was crazy. I had no idea you had worked on that.
Right. It's just like one of those weird little,
Here's the Weatherlight box art.
Oh, yeah. Well, no, that's a Weatherlight advertisement.
Oh, that's an advertisement?
Inquest magazine.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, I love that you knew that right off.
Yeah, that's exactly. But that's what they were using me on. Like, okay, that was an ad. I think even a poster that they made
Cool.
like a fold-out poster for Inquest magazine.
Did you do the? You didn't do Gerard, did you?
No, I didn't. No.
Got it.
But I did the Thrain Tome, which is what the
Yeah.
packaging was, and Steel Golem was used on the foil
Yeah.
packs.
Cool.
And then, like, soon after I did 6th edition, this Archangel packaging box art for 6th edition. And so I guess that's what I'm getting at, is like these pre-releases that they just put me on those, generating those kind of images, because I knew I could be consistent and timely and meet the deadlines, not blow. That's the other thing, is being a professional is really about meeting deadlines. And if you're doing promotional material, you can't be like, oh yeah, it's okay if it's 3 weeks late. Like,
right.
No, it's got to be today. Yeah.
We have a few minutes left, so I just want to ask you, Donato, where are you going to be coming up? Are you doing any of the Magic events? I know there's your gallery show. When's that going to be, the big retrospective in Huntsville?
Yeah, and the opening night will be November 1st, so right after Halloween. And nice. I have a workshop the next day on the 2nd. So that's in Huntsville, Alabama. It's like the northern part of the state. And I did actually attend a Magic Command Fest back at the end of June, and unfortunately picked up COVID immediately right at the event. So that was a lot of fun. So actually, I'm kind of ready to go to more Magic events now that I've had COVID. It's like, I'm now protected a little bit.
Yeah.
Woo! Don't be sick for a week, and then you get to be.
You have the veneer of COVID. Oh.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
And are you doing IX this year?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yes, 100%. I'll be
in the same corner.
Yeah, exact same corner. On Scott. And I had been looking at some more Magic events, just nothing overlapped. I'm going next weekend. I'm going to, or this coming weekend. I'm going to Portugal for the, let's see, Trojan Horse Was a Unicorn. It's a kind of a creative commercial artist gathering.
Cool.
Creators there. So yeah, I'm actually still doing stuff. Yeah, I'm getting out there now.
We may be in Lucca next year, so you should consider doing Lucca in 2020.
Yeah, they pinged me earlier this year about going back to Lucca.
Yeah,
so
you gave me some great advice. Like we
they're doing a big Magic
chance.
30 celebration. Like they're leaning into the whole 30-year anniversary.
Oh, next year, not this year, you mean?
Yeah, for 2023.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, really? Because isn't it 30 now?
They're starting the celebrations now, but technically, I mean, if the first set landed at Gen Con in '93, so I think they're just kind of hitting early. It's like when they start working on Magic versus when they, kind of
when it was actually invented by Richard and play tested versus.
Oh, neat. Yeah, I'll have to look into going then, because they did inquire like when I would want to come back.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know.
It's Italy, man. Like, just go.
I know. It's been 12 years.
Wow.
I think 2009 was the last time I was there. Yeah.
How long's Luca been going on for?
Long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it goes really
years.
Far back. Yeah.
For those who don't know what we're talking about, by the way, Lucca is the San Diego Comic-Con of the Mediterranean. So it's monstrously huge. Everyone from around Central and Eastern and even a little bit of Western Europe shows up, and it's just an amazing time. And I've only been there once, and I would kill to go back.
Yeah, it's Lucca Comics and Games is the official name of it. And it's really quite a celebration. And it really is like focused, it doesn't have the celebrities like Comic-Con, San Diego. It's all about games and creators and writers and artists. So it really leans heavily into that aspect of the creator experience.
It's super fun. Cool. Well, I think we are just about out of time. We have another guest coming up right on your heels.
Yep.
Thank you for joining us.
All right. Yeah.
Man. It's also good seeing you. I haven't seen you since, I guess, IX, right?
Oh, wow. Yeah, I guess last year. Yeah.
I mean, whenever we interviewed you, I don't know, ages ago, a million years ago.
Yeah.
But
Well, congratulations, you guys, again on your Kickstarter.
Thank
and,
you.
I hope you'll put out another share on this later today, and hopefully we'll keep bumping you up there.
Awesome.
Appreciate it, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Donato.
All right.
Talk to you soon.
Good to see you guys. Goodbye.
There he goes. And he got frozen on a lovely little picture of him.
Oh. So do we? I know we're still live, right?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
So did we get Turian hooked up or no? I've sent it to him on Twitter and Facebook.
And I emailed him the link, so hopefully we'll be able to make this work.
Yep.
A little bit of technical weirdness, but
It's okay.
It's
All right.
Skype, man. Skype.
Yeah.
It's
Wish we could
literally
do something
like
different.
sending the link is the exact same as sending a Zoom link. It's
No,
literally
but
the
it's
exact
not
same.
Zoom.
But it's not Zoom. Unfortunately, Zoom
It's
doesn't.
like Zoom has become the equivalent of video conferencing, like Kleenex is to tissue.
Yeah.
It is you Zoom people. You don't video conference them.
I feel like requiring Skype is like saying, look, you got to make sure you use a BlackBerry.
AOL. Or no, you got to make sure you use
A BlackBerry,
AOL.
yeah. Or
BlackBerry,
AOL,
man.
exactly. So what should we talk about while we wait for Mike?
Oh man, there's so much to talk about. We have so later tonight, everyone, starting at 9 p.m. on the MTG Art Market page. MTG Art Market. It's a Facebook group. Sorry, not a page.
Drop
A
the
group.
link.
Yep.
We're going to be auctioning off the original art for our T-shirt. The T-shirt we did in our Kickstarter by Mark Poole. So that's a 24-hour auction. So it starts at 9 p.m. Eastern
There he is.
tonight and goes until Tuesday at 9 p.m. So that's going to be pretty sweet. I'm just upset I can't bid on it myself. Breaks the rules.
So yeah, just look for MTG Art Market on Facebook, and we're going to be posting the auction details. And we'll be posting kind of a preview of that on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram shortly. Hello, Mr. Turian. We're gonna change your title on the
Change your
overlay
title.
here.
Unless you really want to be Donato.
Unless you want to be Donato, yeah.
Well, I think if you've ever seen me paint, you know you need to change my title.
Are
I
you
have many
saying you're not
talents.
artistically inclined, Mr. Turian?
No. Although my wife and I did team up for Loopy Lobster as one of the playtest cards in Mystery Booster. Yes. So that's the extent of my
Okay, bring it up, Seth. Loopy
Loopy,
Lobster.
yeah, I gotta find it now.
Bring it up. We gotta see this.
yes.
And then change his title in that overlay.
I will do that.
But yeah.
Well, while Seth's bringing that up, I was going to say, my wife, she took some magic blanks. Like a lot of times we have at the office, we have.
There it is.
Yes, there's the Loopy Lobster. And so her flavor text that she gave the Loopy Lobster was "make enemy dizzy." Although maybe that was rules text, I'm not really sure. She's not a Magic player, but "make enemy dizzy" was the inspiration here.
I love
Nice.
it. I love it.
Yeah.
So just in case people don't know who you are, Mike, can you kind of give an intro of yourself and what you do for Magic the Gathering?
Sure. Hi everybody. I'm Mike Turian. I'm a product architect for Magic the Gathering. And before I'll talk about what that is in a second. Before that, I joined Wizards in 2004, and when I came on, I was a card set designer. Often now the title would be like final designer, and so I led the Scars of Mirrodin set. I led Future Sight was the first set I led. Conflux, Worldwake, Morningtide. I worked on a lot of card design teams. In addition to that, led up Plane Chase, the original Plane Chase product.
Nice.
Was another one. And so I did that for 6-7 years. Then I went and I joined the technology team, worked on a lot of the back end products, eventually went over and became the product owner for Magic Online, the business manager for Magic Duels, and then starting with Throne of Eldraine, so like 5 years ago now.
Oh my God, was that 5 years ago?
I rejoined. Well, Throne of Eldraine came out in 2019, but for me to work on it,
Right.
was, a couple years prior to that. So I think it was like right at the end of 2017, if my memory holds. I rejoined the Magic R&D team as a product architect.
So I'm just curious, Brian, we might have to really talk about how much the screen we take up with Mike's title when we do the lower third. Instead of it being, we call it, it's a lower third when it's your title at the bottom of the screen when you're in a documentary, like who your name and title. For you, I think it's going to be like top 2/3.
Just lower all. Just
Lower all.
Just a big block of text rolling across the screen.
Yep.
Anyway. What is a product architect?
So I use this wealth of experience that I had gained, doing all these different roles on Magic, and really the product architect is the one, like, we set the structure for the product we're working on, right? So like for Throne of Eldraine or Ikoria, working on, hey, what is the collector booster going to have in it? What's the rarity breakout of these cards? When we're working on promotions, we get to work on a lot of those. So for instance, Ikoria has, the Godzilla crossover, right, and I was instrumental in putting that together. More recently, Crimson Val had the Dracula cards in that once again. And then once the architect works with the game design team, the creative team, on sort of establishing, okay, it's Kaldheim. That's going to be about Vikings. We flesh out what that means for the structure. We work on like the showcase treatments, right? All those cool and new variants. Working with those teams, and then going through. I mean, tons and tons of people work on Magic, as you well know through your experiences creating this documentary. And it's like, okay, what does legal care about? What is the marketing team going to be promoting?
Right.
The finance team, the digital teams, right? Like for Theros Beyond Death, early on in exploration, there was a mechanic where it was kind of like Raging River, right? Where you're like dividing up the creatures. Are they going to attack on this side or that side? And the digital teams were just like, please don't do this to us, right? Because like when you're expressing something in tabletop, you're just like, yeah. This creature's on the left, that creature's on the right.
Right.
But digital has to know, like, okay, all right, who's here, who's where? How do we like update our battlefield to show this in an elegant way?
You literally have to code physicality, like another axis into the game. Oh.
Yeah. Right. And it's something that, because it's not built into like what Magic is, right? Like when you cast a spell in Arena, right, that creature just has its location. Essentially, it might get adjusted with an aura or whatnot, but it's not moving all around the field of combat. Right. And doing that well is really, really challenging.
I have to ask, just because I'm a giant nerd, with the Godzilla card, did you personally talk to Toho at all? Did you have to deal with them?
Yeah, I mean, we partnered with Toho. Often I worked through Toho is a Japanese company.
Yep.
And I don't speak Japanese. So often our interactions were mostly via email, or I would be working with a business partner on my side, on the Wizard side, and then she would be going and working, right, representing me and representing the design teams in those conversations. So the answer is mostly yes, but
you didn't get to go to Toho Studios or anything. You didn't travel to Japan for it.
No, I didn't travel to Japan for it. And also too, I mean,
fair.
They're a global company, so a lot of times it's like, we have partners in England that we were working with, and just
right.
All right, now I have to ask my question because I'm a giant nerd. I've asked Gavin, and I'm curious what your answer is going to be. Who do I blame for this monstrosity? That would be Oko, Thief of Crowns.
Oh, I mean, I guess you could blame. I mean, if you wanted to blame someone, you could blame me. You could blame the the game design team.
I'm not
right?
trying to cast blame. Obviously, it's a joke, but I did bring it up to show all of the formats that it is banned in right now.
It's. I mean, one of the things that is always challenging is, we had gone through a period of time with a lot of the Return to Ravnica sets where, the cards just weren't hitting at the right power level, the right excitement, and Aaron Forsyth, the VP of Design, was really...
Brian, can you mute when you're typing? It's really loud.
Oh, sorry. It's so weird that it's loud.
I thought I was getting in my own personal soundtrack. Yeah.
And I don't mean that in a way to say, like, look, we're trying to blame you. What I mean to say is there are things in the game that go on, it's unexpected. No one expected that to do what it did, right? You can playtest all you want, but there are going to be things you guys don't catch. And really, the question should have been, how did you respond to it and how do you fix it? Like, what do you guys do to try to rein in stuff like that besides bannings?
Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of times, right, like our timelines for making cards are pretty far in advance.
Right.
And so a lot of times it's like, like by the time that we realize Oko is more powerful than we intended, like we're often, many, many sets down the line, right? And so a lot of times in the moment, at least, banning is certainly an option. We definitely take a look at inserting answers in those sets. But once again, that's often like a year away, because, right, that's just how it goes. And also too, I mean, I think one thing that's interesting is, Eldraine, Throne of Eldraine being the fall set, it's like part of the smallest standard environment, right? And so at least from a standard perspective, a lot of times just the future sets being released often ends up counterbalancing some of that. Just as the format grows, right, new strategies emerge, and often they push down prior strategies. Now, in the case of like something like Oko, which was just through the roof powerful, that won't make a bit difference there. But a lot of times when people are like, "Oh, it's the best deck, it's unbeatable," like, well, just
not always.
A few months, and maybe something else will come along and beat it.
Yep.
Mike, I know your background pre-Wizards, you were a Pro Tour player, you're in the Hall of Fame, Magic Hall of Fame. How does that experience come into play when being on the other side, when designing cards, when designing sets? How much of that are you drawing on, or can that somehow get in the way?
I think both. I mean, I think when I was a designer, it was really helpful, right? When back in 2004 through whatever it was, 2009, right? Just having the experience of understanding what cards are good, what mistakes have been made, what cards need to push. Like, a lot of that context from that standpoint is just helpful. I think in my current role, it's more mixed blessing. Like, I still have a lot of, once again, understanding of sort of just the scope of Magic and the needs of all of these different groups. So it's really helpful in that way. A lot of times, like, I don't spend too much time or effort trying to influence the game designers who are working currently on the cards. They're just so much more familiar with, the thousands of cards that are made, that a lot of times, like, looking at an individual card, it's the big picture that matters a little bit more than, right? It's just like, oh, this card's too powerful because of ramp is really good in the format. Right. Where on its own, the card may or may not be too much. So yeah, overall, I feel like it's a mixed blessing.
I mentioned the Hall of Fame, and when we interviewed you, we absolutely had you bust out your ring and show it to us. I mean, do you ever just put that on for family events, or anything where you're going to be out talking to people? So I'm just going to put on this giant honking ring.
Yeah, as you note, it's both pretty awesome and pretty unwieldy. So
You could hurt somebody with that thing.
yes, I will say, yeah, I don't wear it to like family events uh, or things like that. I'll wear it when it's like, oh, I'm going to an event and doing,
Sure.
playing Magic versus at the event. I'll bring it there. Otherwise, it just stays in its ring box. Although my son, my youngest son, has tried to take it to daycare before. Right? Like he has like a Spider-Man ring. He's like, oh, I brought my Spider-Man ring. The next day, my wife's like the mother's ring I got her with the three. Like he actually did successfully bring that to daycare, which was returned to us. And he's also tried to. He's like, oh, what about this ring? So.
Luckily, he couldn't lift it, so it was okay. Luckily, he couldn't quite get it out the door. I'd be really intimidated. I mean, I'm usually intimidated when I play Magic against people because I'm pretty certain I'm going to lose. But I'd be particularly intimidated if I sat down across from someone who was sporting that ring. Because I mean, what better way to predict the outcome of that game than that? So definitely lets me see the future. Seth, you were frighteningly eager to try on the ring.
Well, yes, because it was
Mike.
awesome.
That was a moment. Another thing, Mike, you showed us that I thought was really cool, and for a bunch of reasons. And we posted a photo of this on our Facebook page or on Facebook and social media. The blanket that your mom made for you.
Oh yeah.
And the reason I thought that was cool, okay, partly, yeah, it shows all these events you were part of, but the enthusiasm your family had for what you were doing, I thought was really cool. And what was that like when you were playing, when you were doing the Pro Tour? What was your family like? What kind of support did you have from them? Because it's an unusual thing to go out there and do. I'm going to go play Magic, you know?
Yeah. So I started playing in I think '94, and I taught my dad. I taught my sister. I tried to teach my mom. It did not stick with my mom, but for my dad and my sister, my sister played for maybe a year or two, and my dad, he played all through the time I went to college and whatnot. So for him, he really as my Pro Tour career was going on, when I got the job with Wizards, he was pretty supportive and into it the whole time. My mom, she really saw it as more of a distraction, I think. Because when I was in college, what was I doing? I wasn't studying. I was playing Magic, and I was traveling the world playing Magic. And so I think there was a part of her which was like, oh, this is cool. My son's going to Germany. And another part of her that was like, and he really needs to study and graduate college. And so for her, it really flipped when I got the job at Wizards. I feel like that was the time where, okay, it went from, hey, dabbling in a hobby, not spending time in school, to oh, well, you can make a career out of this. This can be more of a thing. And then, a few years after I started at Wizards, I got into the Hall of Fame, right? And so that I think just further helped sort of solidify it as, all right, it's time to embrace this as something cool and awesome.
I think that's what you're a parent, so I imagine this is what parents want. They want to know that their kids are gonna, not be metaphorically driving off cliffs with their hobbies and stuff. I think once you show, I know once my dad saw that, I could make a career out of this whole producing thing and movie making thing and whatever, he was a little more chill with the whole, I do a lot of stuff about toys and games and whatever. I think he suddenly found that a lot less weird when there was a paycheck attached to it and some level of security. Yeah. I didn't show him what the paycheck was, though, because it's still nerd documentary making, and he doesn't need to know all the details. But was transitioning from being a player into a professional working at Wizards, or just not even transition from being a player, but just in general moving into that role as someone working at Wizards. What was that like for you?
I mean, so for me, I had, I packed up all of my belongings, put them in my car, uh, just having graduated college, drove across the country, and Randy Bueller at the time, who was the head of R&D, was like, "Hey, we bring on a contractor every year. We'd love that to be you." I was like, "Cool, awesome, okay." He's like, "Great, show up." Whatever, September 1st, whatever it was. And like it was more or less my first real job, right? Like I had worked as a shipping manager at a computer place. But like it's like in an office. And so, I was, I don't know, 24, 25. And like a lot of it was, okay, all right, figure out what matters here. Figure out how I can succeed. Figure out what needs to be done, right? And just a lot of, I'll say, like, as a 24-year-old working in an office filled with people who've been doing it for years and years, a lot of it's like, how do I contribute and also not annoy people, right? Because often too, right? Like as a new person, you're like, I'm here to help. I have tons of time. I'm going to say things that have no context or political, right, awareness, internal, right? And so I think the early days were a bunch about that. One thing that really helped was I was put in a corner with Ryan Miller, which he's gone on to design a number of games since. I think he's also the designer behind one of the designers behind the new Disney game, perhaps. And so, like, we would have a blast back in the corner. Like, he'd be, like, oh, we're working on this potential IP for this pitch. So I'd be helping him test all of his games. And being in that corner, like, you could sort of look over the wall and be like, all right, what's going on? Can I come out? Is this the time to come and contribute? But also knowing enough to just, keep my head down, contribute, and do some good work early on while you sort of get your footing. So right. I think it really was an ideal early situation for me.
One of our commenters said, nobody puts baby Turian in a corner. So going for the deep dive into the Dirty Dancing reference. That's yeah. Okay. It seems like a cool job to have and kind of grow up in, because Wizards has undergone, I mean, it's grown as a company so much over the last few years. To sort of be there at that time and to be part of that growth and development of the company in just all different ways must have been sort of an exciting time to be there and to develop, as an adult, with a real job and that whole thing. And so they tell me anyway.
Yeah, it's totally awesome to just see how much Magic has grown and what that's really meant. Like in the early days, I mean, even before my time, it was just like, oh, the Magic team, it's, whatever, 10, 20, 30 people. And like when I joined, there were only a handful of designers working on it, right? Like, from the time I joined to leading my first set was, I believe, like a year, give or take. Wow. Right. Wow. And so, and part of that's like, oh, cool. I mean, hopefully they recognized potential in what I could contribute. And a lot of it was like, oh, well, Brian Schneider's leading this set, Matt Place is leading this set. You're the other designer, so you'll lead the third set we're working on, right? And then, of course, Mark Rosewater and the vision design team had a few designers as well. But it just was such a tight, close-knit group that that was really great, right? You really got to, like, you knew everything, you knew everybody, you knew everything that was happening. Because when I joined, Magic was releasing essentially 3 to 4 sets a year, right? Nowadays, of course, we're releasing far more product than that. And the great thing about that is it's like, well, we have so many more people to work with internally to make all of these awesome sets. And we get to make cards that are designed for Commander players, which wasn't even a thing.
Right.
Commander, what's that?
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
right.
I mean, that alone
And-
shows
right,
the
it's like,
growth.
and we get to make secret layers that are featuring, The Walking Dead or Godzilla on basic lands, or what
Is it
pick your choice of sweet secret layers. My Little Ponies from a couple of years ago.
yeah, yeah.
I
Right?
got to tell
Yeah.
you, my favorite is the Bearscape.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I mean, that's
Like
like
the game's become more inclusive, and it's become so much more inclusive that you can actually have, bears in a hot tub, being bears in a hot tub,
Being
right?
bears enough.
And that makes me happy on so many levels. Like on so many levels,
Yeah.
this makes me happy.
yeah. So it's totally awesome, and that's like, and to me, I think that's a big reward of, hey, as Magic has grown, as we've been able to be more inclusive and to go into more avenues. It's like we have ways to express that inclusivity, right, with a lot of in all sorts of different products, and to me, that's only really possible because of how much success Magic has felt, and so I'm glad we're taking advantage of that for sure.
Is it
Oh, yeah.
hard to, you were talking about the explosive growth of how much product is being put out by Magic compared to when you started. Does it make your job harder to have to keep that much more Magic floating around in your head on a daily basis? Does it make your job harder, or does it make it more exciting?
It definitely makes it. It definitely makes it more exciting. I think it would make it harder, except for the fact that we're bringing on additional people to support
Okay.
all these extra products, right? I mean,
Gotcha.
Like as product architect, I've got to lead. Going through some of the main sets. It was Eldraine, Ikoria, Zendikar, Rising, Kaldheim, Strixhaven, like through that arc into Midnight Hunt and Crimson Vow as well. Right. So, in that couple-year period, I was leading lots of those main sets, but also now we're at a point where the architect team has 5 people on it, right? And so, so yes, we're making more, but we have more support.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and a lot of times too, it's really fun to see awesome Magic cards. I'll say a little bit more from the fan perspective, right? Of just like, oh, here's this awesome thing, and sure, I might become aware of it earlier than it becomes public,
Right.
but it's not something that I was, necessarily the one guiding all of the time. And it's a different level of appreciation when you're like, oh, that's super sweet, and you don't necessarily know every piece of back history, right?
Right.
Right. Right. I like to comparing it to renovating a kitchen. Like you renovate a kitchen, you spend all this time and effort, and then like, what do you see at the end? You're like, hey, friend, if you look in this one corner, these 2 floorboards, they don't line up exactly, right? Like, because you can't not see it the whole time. You've been working on that project, and you just see the blemishes, right? And so
Right.
having some more products where they're just totally sweet is really enjoyable. I mean, all of the products are sweet, but you just
Of course.
you have a different perspective.
Of course.
What's your at least that has been released that you can talk about? What's been your favorite product?
Oh, well, I mean, it's choosing between all of my babies.
Yeah, which of your children do you like
Throw
most?
the babies away. Throw them over your shoulder. Yeah.
Yeah, to me, I am really super proud of Ikoria in a lot of ways. I mean, there's the Godzilla piece, for one. There's
Yeah.
the fact that, as a Magic set, it came out during the pandemic,
Oh yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so, like, to me, if you had said, oh, hey, Magic will have one, it's what at the time it was its most popular, spring set ever. And oh, by the way, nobody's allowed to leave their house while that set's coming out, right? I wouldn't have believed you, but yet, Ikoria was that. And also too, I mean, Ikoria really represents, we had spent more time, like we got the collector boosters going and booster fun going during Throne of Eldraine, but to me, Ikoria was like us sort of doing it from an earlier timeline and sort of showing, hey, this is more of what this can be about, right? And just, having those sort of the comic book style borderless planeswalkers, right, that were really cool, and all of the showcase cards in there. I love that piece too. So yeah, I guess I would pick Ikoria, but if you had told me, oh no, you have to talk about Strixhaven in the same way I could go on about the Mystical Archive and
right.
the Japanese alt versions, and I mean,
oh right, I know it's
right.
like I know it's hard to be like pick your favorite amongst favorites, but yeah. I know your job is to enjoy, I hope is in a way to enjoy every set you do. You're like it's got to be part of your job. Yeah.
So you were involved in Strixhaven, right? You were.
Yeah.
As an aside, when this stream ends tonight at 7 p.m., I'm going to take a half-hour break, and then we have our Monday night D&D stream in which we are playing Strixhaven.
Oh, awesome! Are you the DM? Are you?
I am
running
DMing.
It?
Yep. It's on this channel, but I'm not promoting that. But the point I'm making is, holy crap! It's chocolate in my peanut butter, and peanut butter in my chocolate. Like that's amazing. I am playing Dungeons and Dragons in a world created for Magic the Gathering.
Yeah, and I think for one, if I was playing in that campaign, I would definitely be a Boros Paladin. That would be my choice. Even though you didn't invite me, it's all right.
You are welcome to be an NPC anytime. I will share with you that.
Great. Yeah, we should have done NPCs this whole campaign.
Mike, go on, Seth.
I was just gonna say my Lorehold member in my group is a tiefling monk. So she's karate.
Nice. Yeah.
She is literally. I want to go explore all the old temples as a tiefling monk.
Oh,
so there you go.
And you made me realize. Of course, it was not. We did the Ravnica D&D books also.
Yep.
Right, but this is Strixhaven, so yes, it should have been Lorehold Paladin. It's still be a paladin regardless. Like,
yeah.
I think doing those books is a ton of fun, and one of the things that like Magic has sort of built-in motivations, which works really well with D&D and that structure, right? Of like if I'm Lorehold, right, and you're Quandrix, it's just like, well, we don't even share any colors. However, like, we have sort of those alliances built in of white, green, and red, all sort of circling around, and the white and the blue. And so, it really helps build the storytelling and helps give characters just some sort of direct motivations, which always I find enjoyable in the D&D campaign.
Well, and with regard to the Ravnica, I've played in a Ravnica campaign as well, and I have never played in a more political Dungeons and Dragons game because of the guilds, because of the way the guilds interact. It turned into an incredibly political Dungeons and Dragons game, and that is entirely due to.
Due to what?
Oh, it's entirely due to the fact that this world of Magic the Gathering had set it up such that there are all these machinations and intrigues between the guilds.
Yeah, what do you think of the crossover between, two of the two big properties of Wizards? So you have the D&D and Magic, the chocolate and the peanut butter, as Seth was saying. Like, is it a match made in heaven, or was it a lot of? No, I'm serious. Like, is it a match made in heaven, or was it like, okay, we now have to really massage this to get it to work for Magic? Like, was it a challenge because of it, or was it easy?
Nothing. It turns out when you're working at a company that has, hundreds, or if you include Hasbro, thousands of employees, nothing ends up being easy.
Sure. Not surprising.
However, one thing that really, really helped was James Wyatt had come from the Dungeons and Dragons team, and for many years he spent on the Magic team, working on the Magic creative team, and so both for the D&D books that Seth is running a game in, and for things like we did the art books for a number of years. James really took a lot of that and brought it to reality in terms of sort of the book content for sets like A Forgotten Realm, right? Which was the Magic set, not
Right.
not the D&D setting.
Right.
That is something that I know even when I first started at Wizards, right back in the early 2000s, like there had been talk of, what would a Magic world that had D&D look, what would that be? What would that have? But a lot of the movement towards the universes beyond was like, hey, okay, let's use one of our own brands, and a brand that's just so connected to Magic, right, in terms of the setting and the aesthetic, and really use that to see, like, all right, what is fan reaction going to be? And it is an internal brand, so that way we could go back and iterate on things and make sure that we're representing D&D well, we're hitting what Magic wants to do well, right, and sort of be true to both brands. So there was lots of goodness there, for sure.
Yeah.
What's the cross-pollination like? Like, how often do the D&D teams and the Magic teams sit and chat about stuff?
They're on separate sides of the office, and they shoot each other with Nerf guns. That's what happens every day.
There have been Nerf wars in the past. It was a long time ago.
Yes.
Not between. Usually, it was between floors, and for many years, Magic and D&D sat on the same floor in the building.
Oh, okay.
And so usually we would be teaming up against like the digital team and the brand teams or whatever. But back when that would happen, and also some people, like, some of those Nerf guns are like serious business.
They are.
Right? Like you got. Right, they're just like
BFGs,
taking
like
a bunker.
Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to.
That's quite the aside. I think it depends on, like, it very much depends on the personalities, right? I mean, like, James is a good example of, he was on the D&D team, he came to the Magic team. We've had people from the Magic team go to the D&D team. So like, you get cross-pollination that way. You're all coworkers, and so when free food shows up, of course, like, what unites people better than free food? I'm not sure what, but free food certainly brings us all together.
Free food and cats.
For sure. And then there's places where it's like, right now I couldn't really say, oh, this is what D&D's been working on. I mean, like, we just had Wizards Presents, right? And they're talking about Spelljammer, and all of the cool upcoming D&D things. And, like, I had gotten to pre-review that video, but I was focused entirely on the Magic portion of that, and I watched the Magic portion of that video, I don't know, I'll say half a dozen times. And when I would get to the D&D part, like, even though I enjoy D&D, I would just skip it because, like, I needed to watch that video and give feedback on specifically the Magic part. So, you have that interesting dichotomy as well.
I guess the question on chat is, how do you entwine the lore? Like, when you're working with lore from D&D and you've got some lore from Magic and you need to combine the chocolate and peanut butter, right? Does one take precedence over the other, or?
I think, to me, it's about, like, oh, okay, what does it mean to show a beholder in Magic? Right? We're not rewriting what a beholder is, right? We're really just trying to say, hey, here's a Magic card. It's a beholder. Okay, what does it do? What makes it true and awesome to Magic and represents D&D well, right? And so that to me is a big piece of it, right? When we're talking about Minsk and Boo, we're not rewriting their backstory, right? We're not changing who they are. We're really just taking an expression of characters that are beloved and bringing them into Magic. So I think that's kind of how that entwining works, as it were. It's right because I mean, for one, we don't have. It's just not right for us to sort of rewrite those characters' history or what they are. It's really just an extension of, hey, I love Minsk and Boo, and I want to go collect, more of them, and I want to hold a physical expression in my hand. It's kind of like when you're holding a D&D mini. It's not like, oh, this is the only way this, this only way this character, this goblin can look. right? It's just a way that the goblin can look. It's just a, kobold or whatnot.
So I wanted to go a little further down the technical rabbit hole, particularly for the D&D set, the Baldur's Gate set. When in the process was the decision made to do more tribally things? I love the fact that the Dragonborn are dragons, right? In Magic, they actually count as dragons. So
a Forgotten Realm, like I remember. So we do consumer insights testing on all of our sets, right? Sort of to just get a feel of, hey, what people are responding to. One of the big questions was like, hey, should these D&D characters be planeswalkers? Like, is that a fair expression? And then for things like the creature types, right? When we're talking about, to me, that once again just becomes that same question of, oh, okay, what does it mean to be a dragonborn in Magic, right? What is a true awesome expression that really works? And so by giving them the creature type dragon, it's like, oh, okay, now all of your Dragons Matters cards really work, and can really, and that's one of the things that makes Magic so fun, is to go back and look at, oh, I have some cards from Scourge that reward you for collecting dragons or revealing dragons.
It's almost like you're a Commander player.
Well, I mean, yeah, I do play Commander on it, but it's just, I mean, to me, it's just part of being a Magic player, right? Like, one of the things that's so fun about Magic is the fact that it's so open-ended, right? That's, I remember when I first started playing, that's what blew my mind about Magic, was I'd played up until that point, I'll say, board games in a box, right? You open it up and like Axis and Allies, I love Axis and Allies.
Right.
I still play pretty regularly. And there's a fixed rule set. There's a fixed setup. There's, right? Oh, I mean, you can make house rules, but if you go play with other people, that they're not going to follow them. But Magic, it's really like, all right, hey, this is the type of Magic I want to play. These are the cards I want to play. And you just get to have a lot more fun exploring combos, exploring your experience. That to me really captured my imagination early on in Magic.
How old were you when you started playing?
I started playing when the first time I bought cards, I was 13, about to turn 14. I actually played a bit at I didn't realize it at the time. I'd gone down to like a summer or like a school activity the year prior, and there it was kind of presented as a board game of like, oh, the person that was there, he built a red deck and he built a blue deck, and he built a monocolor deck of all 5 colors using, I'm guessing, beta cards. I don't entirely recall. And I was like, why is Iron Star in the red deck? Why do I want to gain life in this red deck? But at that time, I approached it very much like a board game because, I was just handed these cards.
Right.
And I played for, that evening and then went on and did other things.
When did you realize the potential of the game? Like, when did you move beyond that and say, like, wait a minute, this is a game I can really dig into?
Definitely when I bought cards, right? When I sort of understood, oh, the cards I own are different than the cards my friend owns. Or, like one of the first things I did when I started playing was I kept all the white, red, and green cards, and I gave my cousin, Nate Heiss, who would eventually go on to also work at Wizards, as well as design a bunch of other games. Like, I gave him the blue and black cards, right? And so then and then he would go and get more blue and black cards, and I would go get more white and red and green cards. And, he would be playing Icy Manipulator, so I'd be like, oh, I've got to go add Disenchants to my deck, right? And that sort of cycle was what really made me realize that.
That's really cool. We don't have too much time left, so I want to ask, Kelly had sort of tossed this to me. Do you have any good stories from your life as a Pro Tour player? Anything you can share with us? Because I think a lot of people who play, it's hard to imagine what is Pro Tour playing. You know what I mean? So any fun stories that you think illustrate being on the tour, that illustrate your experiences?
Oh, wow. To me, I always enjoy um, there was a world championship in Toronto. I think it was in 2001, and myself, Aaron Forsyth, and Andrew Johnson, decided we're gonna drive from Pittsburgh up to Toronto. And so we get into Andy. He has like an SUV-ish type vehicle. I don't know. It's kind of, small SUV, like maybe like a Honda CRV. Who knows? And so we're driving in Toronto's like 8 hours ish away from Pittsburgh the night before, and I'm driving on I think it's called the Peace Bridge. Is that the bridge between the U.S. and Canada?
Yeah.
I forget the name of that bridge. And so I'm driving his car, and the tire blows out, and I think, and like I realize what's happening, and thankfully I get to the side of the road, and then the police officer comes up, and he's like, "You can't stop on this bridge, right? Like you are like between international whatever, like no stopping." And I'm like, "We can't go forward either. It's not like I just pulled over, right? Like literally." And so so we get out of the car and we walk forward and like to this little hotel, and I'm like, I'm thinking we're just going to miss the world championship, right? Which is like the culmination of, not too many people get invited. It's this huge event. I think Aaron maybe was on the national team that year. I forget. And so it's, representing the USA. And so it's like, oh no. And so we get to this hotel after walking for whatever it is, 1.5 miles, 2 miles. And I'm like, well, I'm a AAA member. I'm going to just start dialing repair shops. So I just like go in the phone book and I start dialing down this list of repair shops. And like, so luckily a guy picks up. I guess it's like, he's just small time mechanic, and it just rings straight through to his home phone. And I convince him, hey, we really need you to come out. And like the spare went bad. We need a new tire. And he's like, okay, tell the AAA guy, show up, bring it to my shop. So we do that. It's like a miracle. The car gets fixed. I fall asleep in the back seat. And like from that moment on, I was just on fire of like, nothing is going to stop me. Like and traditionally I had not performed well at the World Championships, but that was the one year I made the top 8. And like my life, one of my goals of Magic, like the Hall of Fame didn't exist at the time. Right. So like to me, validation was, being the national champion or being the world champion of Magic. And so I made it. So, there was like 18 rounds of play that happened. And the first day it was just totally exhausted, right? Because of this whole ordeal. But yeah, I really, I just was on fire after that. And I made the top 8. I did lose in the first round of the top 8, so I'm not the world champion at Magic. But to me, still, it's pretty like a reason I like that story is, one, it's just kind of fun, and two, it talks about just perseverance and just this like, hey, it's on you to make it happen, right? Like when you're playing it professionally, it's just like if we hadn't made by round 1, if we weren't there, nobody would have been like, oh, sorry, your tire blew out. Come on, you can join later.